Welcome back to AI for Founders. I'm Ryan Estes, and today we're exploring how AI can transform the way we discover and live with art. My guest is Devika Sarin, founder of Soal at thisissoul.com, a new daily ritual for art discovery built for millennials and Gen Z. You'll hear how Soal's recommendation engine blends behavioral science with curation to map your taste, while their early artist community is nearly 90% women, and how prints, context, and community can open a massive on-ramp to contemporary art without all the gatekeeping. We unpack the business model experiments, the bootstrap first journey, and practical lessons on building community before monetization, human curation before algorithms, and taste before transactions. If you're a founder building consumer AI, a marketplace, or any product where recommendation, trust, and culture all collide, this conversation is for you. By the end, you'll know how to design delight loops, measure meaningful engagement, and turn curiosity into a daily habit. And if you love smart founders shipping real products, get the brief at aiforfounders.co. It's where we turn raw interviews into field manuals you can actually use. Subscribe and turn curiosity into compounding advantage. This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster, the easiest way for founders to get booked on podcasts that move the needle. Imagine showing up to warm rooms of your exact buyers every week, telling your story once and letting it echo across search, social, and sales decks. That's what Kitcaster does. Research, outreach, and placement, so you get interviews that convert. Our clients include high-growth B2B and SaaS teams, funded startups, and expert operators who need pipeline, authority, and backlinks without adding headcount. We handle targeting, host alignment, prep, post-show leverage, so your episodes become blogs, clips, and case study ammo for the whole quarter. Join 800 happy clients who have turned podcast guesting into a reliable acquisition channel. You get consistency, credibility, and a calendar full of the right conversations. Ready to turn your insight into inbound? Visit kitcaster.com and let's book your next 10 shows. That's Kitcaster by MoBurst. All right. Coffee is great, but coffee won't prep your meetings for you. It'll just keep you awake while you panic, hastily scrolling through LinkedIn at 6:59 a.m. Ambient, however, will prep your meetings. Each morning you get a founder-tuned briefing sourced overnight from your calendar, your meeting history, and the web. It's like walking into every call with a cheat sheet that you didn't have to write. No more scrambling, no more guessing, just context, confidence, and focus. And if you're raising money, ambient investor dossiers are an absolute must-have. You'll know the investor's portfolio, their interests, and their latest moves before you even step into the room. You'll even get a heads up on red flags. Think of it as the caffeine upgrade that your calendar actually needs. Prep while you sleep, perform while you're awake. Sign up for free at ambient.us. Go check it out at ambient.us. That's ambient.us. All right. Devika, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Really looking forward to our conversation.
Me too, and this is kind of a rare instance of like a fun conversation that was struck up on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and usually it's just, a lot of folks pitching me, and I appreciate that, but I'm not sure how we got connected, but I saw what you were doing. I was like, oh, you got to come on the podcast, and you were gracious enough to come. So thank you so much. Now, to get things kicked off, I know that you're just about to launch your application and the corresponding company that goes with it. It's called Soal, and the website is thisissoul.com. Please give us a quick introduction to what Soal is.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So Soal is built on a mission to make the art world more accessible for a wider audience. So essentially, our app is going to be creating a daily ritual for art discovery, specifically aimed at millennials and Gen Z who are interested in art but not really sure where to start. Our AI is very unique. It looks at scientific and behavioral principles. So there's a really deep emphasis on creating deeper connection and meeting throughout this process. So it's really about people who are interested in culture but really haven't had a ability to have the context or confidence to get involved in the art world. So we're really aiming to introduce people, help them figure out their tastes, and then provide context, conversation, and education to help them dive deeper into the industry.
Very interesting. How do you help someone find their art taste?
Yeah, it's pretty nuanced. I think a lot of people will say that finding art is extremely personal, but it's like any other affinity that people have, like music or sneakers or jewelry. It's about really getting to know the individual on a personal level and then trying to match them with content or context that's going to relate to where they are in life. So it's a little bit of getting to know you as an individual and then also helping um, you help us by providing different insights into what images and artworks you like or might be interested to learn more about. So it's a little bit of an art and science, really trying to get to know you, what you stand for, where you spend your time, what you're looking at, what you're obsessed with, and then trying to match you based on those qualities.
Cool. So, exactly how do you use the application? How is it figuring this stuff out for me? And then what's the outcome? So once it derives my art taste and what I like and what I'm interested in, and I have maybe a bevy of places to go. What do I do next?
Yeah, the emphasis on this particular version that we're launching is really around the discovery specifically. So, how do you actually learn to see different artworks, learn about different art genres? We provide you with a daily set of artworks that you're going to explore through, and then you can learn more depending on what piques your interest. And the more you spend time with Soul, the more we're able to actually get a sense of what these particular tastes and requirements are, so we can suggest other artworks to you. So, it's really about encouraging people to kind of go down these rabbit holes and be inspired and really learn about different art and artworks because ultimately a lot of users, and this is a journey I went through myself, it's about connecting to contemporary culture and a community of like-minded individuals, similar to how you would discover and learn about your music taste. And really get to know the artist and the different types of genres or music that they produce. You can spend a lot of time through their catalog. Similarly, with artists, you can do that more visually with their portfolio of artworks. So we're really serving up the platform for you to spend time, discover, engage, and then what comes next is, what we're working on specifically with the magical elements of our AI and how we're going to help you continue to engage in multiple different ways, whether you want to go to a show or you want to buy or you want to support an artist in whatever capacity you can.
Sure. So is this mainly for like contemporary working artists now, or is this kind of like an art history tool?
Yes, it's a little bit of a blend of both, but primarily our goal is to empower and uplift working contemporary artists today. And we're focused on artists that are mostly doing 2D works like painting, photography, and then within painting in multiple different genres. So a lot of the artists that you'll get to know and connect with, you might recognize because we have some master legends on the platform, but then you'll see how living working artists connect to artists that you might recognize, like a Van Gogh or a Monet, and then find out that you could actually go visit this artist in LA or New York City or buy a print from them.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. And I think there's a real need for it, right? Because contemporary art, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically just means anything. They're so vast that are there even like schools? I mean, are we at postmodern yet? Or
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think now we're just in the postmodern contemporary bucket. But you're right, there aren't a lot of avenues for people to just spend time and explore. And that's really the goal of what we want to accomplish with this first phase of the company is just creating that space. So I think about it a lot like a third space. It's not a physical place yet, but you can go there to spend time, to learn, to engage, and really get to know art and have it meet the education kind of meet you where you are. So, I think the goal, if you want to be an art history expert, that's available to you. But if you just want to figure out how to talk about your vibe or share artworks with other people that you're interested in, you have the ability to kind of plug in, wherever that fits
yeah,
for you.
it's cool. And it's super important too, because there's different art moves you for different reasons, Like I love Rembrandt. Who doesn't? but I don't necessarily want that
Mhm.
over my dinner table when I'm eating breakfast. It's a little too intense.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
I might
totally.
want something a little
Yeah.
more
I mean, I think
graphically
yeah.
inspired.
I mean, you brought up a good point too, because, there's different types of art. There's art that sparks something in you, inspires you, creates conversation. And then there's art that a lot of people want to be aesthetically pleasing to have in their living room or their kitchen. And there's also art that blends the two, where people have an aesthetic, affinity for it, but it also has the ability to spark a very specific emotional response. So a lot of what we are looking at too, and something I'm really interested in, which has kind of kicked off a lot of this, is how art impacts our well-being and our overall mood, and ability to be creative, empathetic, and remain inspired. So I think it's really important as a place to go for people when they're feeling overwhelmed or disconnected, or just need to kind of tap back into that personal well of inspiration that might be running dry.
Yeah. Or you're looking for something new, you know? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the creative instincts, like for me, it was just kind of like I just run out of ideas sometimes, you know? Like we moved recently.
Hmm.
We were living in a house for about 10 years, and then we moved kind of out to the country a little bit. And it was a new build, which meant it was just like this white palace. It's just like everything is
White walls.
white, you know? And I was just like, oh my God, it was like so overwhelming. Behind me, I was like, well, I'll make that wall dark. Okay. Not everything is white, you know? So,
Hmm.
talking to my wife about like, okay, let's decorate. We have art, but like, let's do something new. But if I start thinking about it, I was just like, well, I like, cactuses and I like candles and I like old clocks. Is this an aesthetic? This is, like I need like something to inspire me. I need to see different things. And I kind of went through like Google Images for a minute. I was like, I don't know, man. I'm not finding anything, So I think this is really
Hmm.
good timing. It probably happens with a lot of people. You kind of end up with maybe the couple of old posters on the wall you had, and you maybe inherited a doll from your aunt or something, and your house starts
Hmm.
looking like some
Hmm.
some rerun of Antiques Roadshow, and you're like, dude, I want a different vibe, but where do you turn, right? Now, you and I know startups aren't built in boardrooms. They're built in the wild, during 3 a.m. bug fixes, botched launches, and that one meeting where everything almost fall apart. That's what Code Story is all about. It's a podcast where tech founders break down the make or break moments behind their products, what went wrong, what went right, and what nearly wrecked everything. Hosted by Noah Labhart, Code Story goes past the highlight reel and into the honest stuff. Late pivots, brutal bugs, and somehow coming out alive with a product people actually love. If you're in the build stage, or the scale stage, or the please let this feature work stage, I can relate. This show will speak to your soul. Listen to Code Story at codestory.co or wherever you get your podcast. Just search Code Story, it'll be right at the top. Because great startups aren't born, they're forged, one hard moment at a time. Codestory.co. What's up, everybody? Let me hit you with some math that will blow your mind. A wealth manager using warmstart.ai grew their assets under management by 8.5 million in 3 months. Their monthly fee, $500. That's a 1700% return on investment in 3 months. And I get it, another AI tool, another monthly subscription. But here's what makes Warmstart different. It's not trying to find you new people to bug, it's helping you reconnect with people who already know you. As a founder, your biggest asset isn't your product or your website, it's your relationships. But most of us are terrible at nurturing them systematically. Warmstart connects your email, identifies warm contacts, and helps you craft personalized outreach that doesn't sound like a robot wrote it. The best part, you review every message before it goes out. No automation without permission. If you're ready to stop leaving money in your inbox, try warmstart.ai. Use code AIFF for $50 off your first month, because the ROI on your existing relationships is probably better than any investment you'll make this year. That's warmstart.ai and use code AIFF.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because I feel like what you're talking about relates to so much more than art specifically, which is, what's your source of creativity? How do you describe your taste? So a lot of people I talk to will say to me, "Oh, I don't know anything about art. I don't really have a specific design aesthetic." But, even in just your description, you listed like three or four things like cactuses and clocks, and they might seem really random, but they're starting points for where you can kind of go on your own journey to connect the dots. And then if you have a place that is inspiring you to do so, and you can actually actively buy and support artists instead of going to Home Goods or, another type of like off the shelf solution, it becomes really interesting.
Yeah.
And again, like even just as a source for your own creative well, which we definitely need to top up, I feel like more often than usual these days.
Yeah. Hey, well, it's been like a great conversation with my wife of like what we want to do and where we want to come together and how we can merge styles and expectations and things like that. And I mean that truly because, a lot of times in a relationship, especially, we got two kids, it's like a lot of your conversation revolves around work. It revolves around just the logistics of being a human, but like talking about like how we want to display, what we want to display, what we want the energy of the room to look like. It's really cool and brings up some
Mm-hmm.
fun, arguments and things. Cause, I like candles and cactuses, but I also like crystal balls and I like mirrors,
Cool.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that if it was left to me, like this would look like some kind of fun house mixed with some kind of like psychic kind of den if it was up to me. And then it's just kind of the energy of my office, which is great. I love it. But, for my wife, she is an art history major. So she has like a real, a
Oh,
knack for
cool.
the
Mm-hmm.
classics, but also like she's very creative and, so like literally what we were doing was like going to Ross and being like, what about any of this stuff just to get inspired? Because there's some good stuff at Ross. Or go into IKEA and like, okay, what do we like
Mm-hmm.
IKEA stuff? Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I don't know if we do. So I'm really intrigued. Now, what's the business model? So like you're creating this kind of cool platform to introduce people, educate them a little bit, and then like make connections to artists that are kind of all over the country. Like how do you make money from the app?
Yeah, we have a couple of different ideas and plans of what we're going to execute. With our test version that we ran a pilot with artists and users from our wait list, we did facilitate transactions of prints through the app. So, that's always going to be a method of monetization for us. And I think given that we have a community that's focused on engagement, we can get more creative in terms of how we want to monetize. Not ads, but there's a couple other things we're looking at that helps us really kind of be able to collaborate with different partners inside and outside the industry, as well as help artists kind of monetize in different ways from just participating and sharing. Because right now, I don't know if you're familiar with, or if you and your wife have even looked at artists on social media. There's a real pressure to be posting reels and having to be influencers and create as much content as they can. But it feels like they don't get a lot back from that universe. So, for us, we think a lot thoughtfully too about how do we help them continue to promote and share more of who they are, but not really put that strain on time and resources for them. Or if they do that, how can they get something back while somebody like a user is getting confident, learning, and engaging?
Well, yeah, to this point, like prints, especially large prints, I was shopping for it and I didn't find it. What I was thinking is, I would love to have prints that were like really big, maybe 6 feet wide by 4 feet. Maybe it's like newspaper and I could just hang them from clips, like just like kind of different things. Really hard to find anything like
Hmm.
that. You have kind of like the big printing houses that are doing like murals that are kind of wallpaper, which is kind of cool. But like again, you're not getting the uniqueness and originality. For me, I'm not going to drop 10,000 on an original art piece, but I might drop 500 on a cool print. You know, that
Hmm.
that would be
Hmm.
amazing. Way to kind of monetize it and introduce new audiences. And to your point, like social media right now, if art comes in front of if it comes by my algo, whether it's Reddit or TikTok or whatever, it's always because usually the artist is like really really physically attractive, so they're like, look at the picture of that I made of a cactus. And that's like, Well, that is a nice
If that
picture,
makes
but you
sense.
happen to be unbelievably good looking, and I think that's probably why that it's hitting the algorithm. So it just feels disingenuous a little bit. Not that they're not true artists or whatever, but it's like ultimately it's just getting picked up because they're exceptionally good looking. There's not like an algo that really is like feeding art based on the merit of the piece.
Yeah, and I think you also raised another point where a lot of artists feel like they can't control that side of the equation, or it's like a pay to play model where they have to invest to somehow like manipulate the algorithm. So, yeah, I think it's definitely something people have tried to figure out on different social media platforms, and some art marketplaces have looked at it, but I think it is challenging to have a nice balance between suggesting artworks that somebody might be interested in just based on the content of the artwork itself.
Yeah. And that there's not anything wrong with that. I kind of felt self-conscious because I went and looked at the artists you're featuring on the website, and they're all beautiful women. So maybe there's something to it. Is there a particular kind of focus on women artists?
I didn't intend any of that, but it kind of happened naturally. I feel like given what we're trying to do at Soul, the community we're trying to cultivate, I naturally connected with a lot of women artists that were looking for some sort of similar community. So having a little bit more intention, community at the center, engagement, depth of the connection as well, really resonated with a couple of individuals. And then part of, just the natural network effects of being introduced to other artists that they're friends with, like-minded people started to get connected in the community. And we ended up being able to promote and onboard almost 90% women artists. So I think it's pretty cool that it naturally happened that way. But no, we're open to any type of artist. But yeah, I think again, like the culture that we've tried to cultivate even before launching, and the brand that we're building, the newsletter that we put out, the content that we put out, we're really hoping to attract artists who are interested in this type of space, doing something different, having a different entry point, and then looking to connect with a community that's very interested but doesn't really have all the tools.
Yeah. The last big art movement that happened was NFTs. Any interest in bringing NFTs into this?
It's funny when my first startup was in art as well. We were doing some work with blockchain there. And then around like 2021, I had a ton of people message me telling me to pivot into NFTs and I should do a Web3 platform. And I think NFTs are really interesting. They offer a different, again, entry point for people into the collectibles and art market, which I think is really great. But from just like a technology structural standpoint, it introduces a completely different layer of complexity. And, we're happy to promote artists that make NFT art. Some artists do make multiple different mediums because they felt compelled to enter into NFTs when it was, during the boom. So, there's still an opportunity to be discovered, but that's not really our focus.
Yeah. What's your personal take? What's your art aesthetic?
My art aesthetic is very abstract heavy. I'm really big into abstract art. Mark Rothko is one of my favorite artists, probably like my entry point into the art market. So I'm really also someone that likes to mirror my art based on natural landscapes. So sunsets, beach scenes, like community table gatherings, like that type of content is really interesting to me in the art scene. And then any artist that has the ability to create like an abstract or surrealist kind of take on that is yeah, really interesting to me. So it tends to be very like dreamy vibes, but also has a lot of nature kind of mixed in. And then I also really love artists that are able to do interesting thing with portraits. I think that's the ability to capture someone's essence is really interesting as well. And so if an artist is able to do that and get you attracted to someone that you've never even met before or seen, I think that's pretty yeah, impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we might have similar tastes. I'm looking at Mark Rothko. I don't really know. I didn't know his work before, but
Mm.
it's like calm and pretty and, pleasing, you know?
Yeah, and like tons of big blocks of color,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. And a lot of the artists of that time, like Mark Rothko's period, kind of intuitively knew how to choose the colors, how to lay them out in a way that would make people respond in a positive, or if it, led to it a negative manner, but just to have a reaction in general, which again, like even like the history and storytelling behind that is super fascinating too.
Yeah. Did you ever read that book Diary by Chuck Palahniuk?
No, I haven't heard of that.
It's a great book. He famously wrote Fight Club, and Chuck's a
Okay.
really fun writer. He was one of the first people that created Burning Man. So he's been in kind of like this anarchist like kind of artist community for a long
Mhm.
time. But he wrote this book, and it was really interesting. It was about a woman who was a painter, and she was really self-conscious because she went to art school, and the artists, this would be late 80s, early 90s. Their idea of art was like, dyeing their dog's hair with Kool-Aid and then gluing it to a tree, being like art.
Okay.
And they're judgmental to her because she did like these like pastoral scenes, kind of classic with like a farm, just and made like what would just be like
Uh-huh.
pretty art, So, and then there's a time machine wrapped in there, and the whole world is about to end for something. It's a really fun read, but I just love that idea because there's kind of an innate snobbishness that always kind of turned me off to art in a way, which, with my wife being an art historian, she's like, oh, you're just into craft, because I really, if I had an aesthetic aside from cactuses, clocks, crystal balls and mirrors, it's probably like feudal Japan, where everything is just like,
Okay.
just
Yeah.
so, um,
Mhm. Mhm.
but that being said, do you find that there still is kind of like an insider club with artwork, or do you feel like over the years it's gotten more embracing of like everybody's different style and like people that maybe aren't into like fine art, that like maybe pretty things or like architectural things? What's the vibe of art right now?
Yeah, it's pretty split. I think it still has an air of exclusivity. There is still a distinction between fine art and craft art, hobby artists and full-time professional artists. I'm not sure how or when that will blend, if it will at all, because I think in every industry of craft, there's always layers of expertise. That's just like a natural order of things. I think where I think it's interesting is how that interest that you have in arts in general, crafts, can lead into an interest in the fine art category. So the world in that sense is blending in terms of how are you getting introduced to art and artists. Illustration is making its way into the more fine art world. Some cartoon fandom type of art is making its way into the traditional world too, which is another way to make it a little bit more accessible because people have more kind of context and exposure to illustration and kind of characters that they might recognize from different shows or comic books. So I think unfortunately it is a stereotype that in the deep parts of the art world, people in the art world are very conscious of, and I think it's kind of talked about how the art world needs a little bit of a shakeup or some sort of reset, but it's not certain when or how it's going to happen. I think it will through just exactly the conversations that you and your wife are having, where you have the commonality between the experts and someone who's a novice. And then our, part of what we want to do at Soul is help bridge that gap, remove some of the intimidation, the exclusivity to say, like, even if you don't know that you like XYZ type of art, you like something that's adjacent to it. And that can help you kind of be a bridge back into the more traditional world, which, in terms of like accessibility, has become more accessible over the last few years just in price points and artists, making smaller works, prints, like that diversity has definitely helped the market too.
Yeah, and I think like Gen Z too, like a lot of the snobbishness of like the lunchroom tribes that existed when I was a kid is kind of gone. Probably thanks to Spotify,
Mm-hmm.
where you used to have to go to like the country western part of the record store, or you're on the hip hop part of the record store. You're in the jazz. Like there was like literally segregation of the genres. So you're like, oh, I'm a Hesher. I go to the metal section, and that's who I am as an identity. When you lose that, then you're just like, oh, all these songs are great. And both of my kids have amazing playlists and unbelievable taste because they can go outside of what their tribal affiliations were. And perhaps, soul becomes something very similar for the art world where people aren't even thinking like that, and I think it's kind of disappearing too from what I've seen from the art community here in Denver. So, what was it, 10, 15 years ago, there was this huge mural culture that blew up in every single metropolitan area, as it did in Denver, just gorgeous murals. People from all over the world would come for what they were called Crush Denver, and they do all these murals in the neighborhood. And being a local kid and a skater many lifetimes ago, and these are still my buddies, but a lot of these guys are like graffiti artists. So you had these like deep trenched divisions between, I'm a graffiti artist, that's not, you're doing a mural on my streets, get a little territorial. But I had a buddy, a good buddy of mine, D, who's like part of a famous graffiti crew in Denver for many, many years, but also does murals and also does oil painting. And he's a man of very few words, but I remember asking him, I was like, dude, what do you think? Is there going to be a war between the muralists and the graffiti artists? He's like, I don't care. I was like, well said. But I think a lot of these like kind of tribal affiliations over time will just kind of dissipate, because Gen Z seems to be just this mass amalgamation of styles and enthusiasm, where kind of the snobbishness I appreciate because I am a jazz guy. So you got to feel some kind of superiority some way. But they just don't have that baked into their culture at all. Like, it seems like it's much more welcoming and more excited and enthusiastic about a lot of different things, that to kind of feed what they're into.
Yeah, definitely. I think the enthusiasm is important distinction that you just mentioned. I feel like that taste for a variety of things, especially because they grew up with so much technology at their fingertips, and the ability and the start of like Spotify and personalization, it's almost kind of assumed to them that they'd have somebody helping them filter through a bunch of different things. Whereas I feel like the generation before would kind of stick to something that they knew because it took a long time for them to really develop their taste and expertise, like jazz, in that area. Though I still do think there is some sort of pride in being someone that knows a lot about a specific topic. That trend seems to still be there, which I think is part of human nature. People are very proud and excited to share what they're learning, how it's changed them and why they recommend it to somebody else. So that I think is not going to go anywhere, which is, super beneficial for a lot of AI products, personalization products that are thinking about recommendation.
How have you used AI in your tech stack in building the app?
A lot of that, we kind of have like proprietary work around it, but we really have it more as the recommendation engine that's kind of guiding how we're serving up the recommendations. And we're also looking at different ways that we can use AI to make a lot of the content and like context dissemination a little bit easier for us. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a blend of, human and AI intervention and how to support kind of what naturally happens in the space before kind of deciding to go more AI heavy, because I still think there's a lot to be learned on the best way to engage with people, whether or not they want a co-pilot or a guide or a friend, or they just want someone to help them decide. There's still a lot of, I think there's still just a lot of discovery to be done there.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the classic usage, it's called AI now, but it used to just be called machine learning. And, that's probably Facebook's greatest, contribution to AI. And they've been doing it for 20 years. So just like, if you like this, you're probably going to like that. It's really good at that. This episode is brought to you by MoBurst. the AI-first growth engine trusted by iconic startups like Calm, Robinhood, Reddit, Uber, and Google. Moburst is a digital full-service mobile-first marketing agency that helps companies to scale and become category leaders. Whether you're finding product market fit or ready to accelerate growth, Moburst delivers creative, data-driven solutions that help with scale and efficiency and impact. At Moburst, we're not just guessing what works, we're predicting it. As an AI-first agency, Moburst uses cutting-edge tools to analyze user behavior, adapt creative in real time, and uncover hidden growth opportunities. The result, marketing that's faster, smarter, and built to convert. From early-stage startups to global brands, we've helped hundreds of companies overcome complex challenges, unlock new audiences, and optimize every metric that matters. At Moburst, we believe that creative thinking, advanced technology, and data are the core drivers of success at scale. If you're serious about scaling your business with precision and purpose, it's time to talk to Moburst. Visit moburst.com and let's build something category-defining together. Hey founders, let me ask you this. Are you building with AI or getting left behind by it? If you're serious about scaling smarter, faster, and bolder, you need to check out aiforfounders.co. It's your go-to resource for cutting through the noise and actually using AI to grow your startup. Each week, AI for Founders drops a sharp, no-fluff newsletter, dives deep with expert guests on the podcast, and hosts monthly workshops where you can get your hands dirty with the real tools and strategies. Whether you're pre-seed or Series B and beyond, launching something new or just staying sharp, AI for Founders gives you the edge you need to win in 2025 and beyond. Hit aiforfounders.co to subscribe to the newsletter, tune into the podcast, and grab your spot in the next workshop. And it's all free. Build smarter, move faster, think bolder with AI for Founders. Now back to the show.
Right. Exactly. So now it's like anything at the scale, at the level of scale. And for me, I think about a lot of how can we also make the artist's side easier too using AI? Like, is there anything that we could use to help them better tell their story?
Yeah. I like this too because it's, there's so many applications. Obviously, AI has just become a term for everything. But, the generative AI stuff is what I've been really experimenting with a lot. And it's at the frustration level 99 because it's so close to being perfect but it's so annoying that it's not what you want. Where it seems like Soul is a perfect place where it's like, I don't want to make anything all the time. I'd like to receive sometimes, and it's
definitely.
It's nice,
Right. Yeah. And people have asked us if we're getting into generative art, AI art. We are not. That's also not really part of what we're offering right now. So yeah, I think you're right. Like sometimes you just want to go and be fed certain things to look at rather than have to make it or create or come up with the prompt or the concept yourself.
Yeah. And there's just kind of there's an aesthetic for AI derived everything. And sometimes it's like, I want analog. I don't want that digital. I mean, even if it's a picture of scenery, you're like, okay, nice. This is great. I mean, I think more and more so there's going to be bigger and bigger demand for that of like diminishing the screens in the house and like creating an environment, for other things, for a space for other things to emerge,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if you hang out on Substack at all, but that is the major, at least from what I'm seeing, the major call to action is like, let's take a step back and go analog. People are sharing, daily rituals and routines that have nothing to do with screens, their walks in nature, like handwriting notes, going back to landlines. So it's definitely really interesting how now the more rare and craft and slow, it might take more precedence for people, especially in their non-work life.
I saw somebody on Reddit call cigarettes analog vapes. I was like, whoa, what? It's wild. How did you finance the project?
bootstrapped for a very long time, and then just recently brought on some early investors. So yeah, it's been pretty much funded by myself, and I have been lucky to have some really awesome team members, supporters, contributors along the way. But it definitely was a bit of a longer journey because of the bootstrapped kind of methodology, but at the same time has really kind of helped hone in what we're building because there was a lot of prototyping, testing, interviewing, and time to really like think more thoughtfully about what we wanted to build.
Great. I mean, you live in San Francisco. Did you feel pressure that you needed to create something that would launch to the moon or some mission that was going to change humanity forever?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to escape in that environment and ecosystem. And I feel like I felt a lot of pressure and you know, necessity to build and like create a pitch deck and a product that was going to do that. I still believe that our mission and our product are going to be hugely impactful. I just think that, and this is probably because this is my second time doing this, it's better to find people that align with your mission and what you're trying to build and really figure out product market fit and then how you want to scale from there rather than having the pressure to just say that you want to be this disruptor and then inevitably kind of change your business model or path because taking venture opens up a lot of doors and opportunities and is definitely something that would change the outcome for an entrepreneur, but it also has certain kind of requirements that come with it. And I didn't really realize that when I first got to SF, but learned that just from like meeting investors and trying to figure out like where we fit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it would completely change the whole trajectory of the thing, which isn't good or bad, but it's there's such a pressure with all these venture-backed startups that like literally you're chasing unicorn, and if you don't have that in your trajectory, they're just going to walk right past you. But maybe
So
we should do book club and we'll both read diary together and see if there's some parallels there. Because maybe that's your art school.
yeah, I gotta check out that book. Mhm.
Your art
Yeah,
school.
but I
Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I was just gonna say that it might be slower to not take that money up front, but I think if you are building something that resonates and you figure out what you want as a founder and what kind of life you want as a founder, once you get to a certain level of, um, you know, prominence as a product, then the doors really open for you automatically, I think. I think there's a tension when you first start as a founder where you're like, I want to build to get investment. And then the founder investors are telling you, you need more traction. And so, in the early days, it's kind of like neither is useful advice because you don't have the ability to get the traction because that's why you need the money. But if you keep at it and you go a little bit slowly, eventually you can get somewhere where you start to figure out like, okay, there's different investor options, there's different funding options, and maybe venture is the right path. Yeah, it's not definitely not the easy road. None of it is easy, but it it depends on what kind of person you are too, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, let's see. I'm looking at, yeah, because I'm just trying to think. There's like I don't know of any art discovery marketplaces. I mean, you could say Etsy or something, but that's not really it. You know, and then I'm looking at like Depop, for example. Depop's doing about 115 million annually, which is unbelievable amounts of money, and
Yeah.
it serves such a great purpose where you're like, oh, I want some snakeskin boots. Let's see if it's on Depop. I don't want to pay 500. I want to pay 100. And so you can curate and find all these things that you need. So it's,
Mhm.
is Depop
Mhm.
venture backed? I don't think it is, but still, there's so much opportunity. I don't know. It's very cool. All right. I want to go to quick time with slime. Are you open to a little game here?
Okay, I think so.
Okay, let me bring it up. So basically the rules of the game is you have to pick this or that. You cannot pick neither and you cannot pick both. And if you do, you have to hit yourself in the
Okay.
head with a pillow. That's the rule. So let me pull it up here. Oh. Doop-a-doo.
Okay, I don't have a pillow here.
Okay, we'll have to use an imaginary pillow to be very soft so it doesn't hurt.
All right.
Okay. So curate or
Cool.
democratize? Would you rather personally curate every artist on Soul or let the community self-publish?
Oh man. I can't caveat. I can't have a first then, Matt.
No, you can. Please, whatever you think, and then just explain a little bit of how you think about it, I suppose.
Uh, yeah, I was gonna say curate then democratize. So I think there needs to be a little bit of guidance and initiation and intention, and then you can open it up to more people.
And creating
That's how I think about it.
standards, right? Something like that.
Mhm.
Cool. Um, for curating these kind of artists that will be on the platform, you use predominantly emotion or you use predominantly logic, which might come down to you think it'll sell more or you think you you like it better.
If I had to choose emotion,
Why so?
um, because I feel like they're kind of connected. It's almost like heart and mind. It just depends on what type of person you are, which is gonna win out. But eventually you reach both in your process of decision making. So I tend to go with my emotion first and then the logic. So I think that's how I would, yeah, think about this.
Seems like this, usually the emotions are, it's either clickbait or it's rage bait. It seems to be the governing emotions. Are you afraid that if you don't think logically, of course you would. Of course it's both. But is there,
Mhm.
as you're curating kind of a recommendation engine, that ultimately what gets fed to people are things that like are maybe rage baity?
I think again that goes down back to the first of curation, first democratization. It's like I think it's a very tricky subject about how much oversight is going to be involved in a lot of these products, but there needs to be some sort of standard set. And if the intention of a product is to just get an emotion out of somebody, then it's not going to achieve its goal because, ultimately for us, like we want this to be a space that makes you feel good. So however you can figure out that along with us is the best rather than us just continually trying to say, hey, this is going to be a rage bait, clickbait kind of space,
Yeah.
just tapping into the quick reaction.
Right.
But some people can do that well. Like Banksy is an artist that does both.
Yeah.
He's kind of mastered that. So there's probably again like a little bit of a balance in there.
Yeah, because I mean Zuckerberg is completely, he's done it terribly. Like I can't even go to his products because, I could tell it that like, okay, I like cactuses and candles and this is it. But then what happens is like there'll be like a beautiful woman in the gym doing squats and I'm going to stop for 3 seconds and be like, whoa, what is that? Obviously. And then it feeds me that constantly. So it like knows what I actually am going to stop for. But it's like, yeah, man, but now I don't even want to use the product because it's embarrassing. If I open Instagram and it's just all beautiful women working out, it's like, I didn't want it to be like this. I wanted cactuses and candles, but now this is obviously what I stopped on. You know what I mean? So it's just an
Mhm, mhm.
interesting path that we're in right now, and particularly in this moment, because, if Trump is selling American TikTok to another entity and like we're going to have some kind of government controls into the algorithm, creating kind of machine learning guardrails of like how you want to treat human dignity, I think is ultimately the question. It's like we're all going to have these base responses to rage baity stuff or violent stuff or scary stuff. Like, but do we really want to be appealing to that? I think what I really like about what you're building is it has this kind of like I don't know, like good intentions for lack of any other word. It's like, no, man, like let's help people find stuff that they would like for different reasons. And it has a potential to like be something really unique and novel, I think.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, keeping the humanitarian, kind of beneficial, ethical aspect of it is really important too, especially because of all the stuff that you just mentioned.
Yeah, there's plenty of artists though that use that sneaky sex appeal. So you're like, whoa, it's kind of a classic. The Egyptians did that. I mean, hieroglyphics were notorious for that. It works, So what are you gonna do? Okay. Niche versus mass. Do you want to deploy to very niche markets, or are you looking for kind of like the every person?
I think, with any product that you're building, you kind of have to go niche and work your way out and like figure out who you're speaking to directly at first.
And you're focused on kind of Gen Z, it sounds like. Would that be your niche?
Gen Z, millennial, yeah, we're trying to find like an overlap in qualities between the two as our niche.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. This one I think you've already answered, but monetize early or build community first?
Build community first.
Exclusive versus inclusive. Should it be selective, like luxury or curated, or as inclusive as possible to welcoming just about anybody who wants to show up?
Inclusive.
Right, we've kind of gone over some of these. Human touch versus algorithmic recommendation. I suppose is there a way to design features that you get both? Oh, I got to hit myself in the head with a
Yeah.
pillow.
I mean, a lot of these for me are one, then two. Like you need to have, yeah, both of them in there. Um, again, I think the human element is important, and then at some point you can figure out how to automate that.
Well, it truly is both, because if Spotify is a good example, it's like, if I could type in like chill work music, that'd be fine. But Friday night, I want to go to hear a DJ. I want them to make the choice. And they're going to make the choice on how the energy of the crowd. So it's like the algorithm is very helpful, but it's also cool that like if there's somebody you like or respect and knows how to keep the party going, like let them make a decision. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, Spotify had a lot of human involvement in creating their algorithm
sure.
in the early years. So yeah, it's also same like that, hand in hand, DJ to then automate whatever they would recommend.
Yeah, totally. Or like I remember when I was getting tattoos and early on, I would like, I was before Photoshop really in the mid 90s. And I would, if I wanted kind of a distorted look or like a rough edge or something, I'd sketch something and then I'd make like 3 photocopies of it and like distress it and then bring it to my tattoo artist and be like, trace it, and then he'd trace it. And those tattoos I have are terrible. I mean, they're bad. And it's totally my fault because I was like, do this, very rigid. And then you realize that you just go find an artist you respect and you're like, dude, I'm thinking like birds or something. What do you think? And then you let them do it. They're the artist, you know?
Mhm.
Sometimes you
Yeah.
need the cat.
Unless you have the drawing ability or
Yeah, exactly.
the creative vision.
What am I doing? Making photocopies and tracing things from like literally like the encyclopedia? It's a different time. What are you gonna do?
Mhm.
Amazing. This has been so much fun. The website is thisissoul.com. Your art journey starts here. You're opening up very soon. If you're an artist and you want to get involved with your application, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So on our website, there's a contact us if you're an artist form, and you can drop all your information in and it goes straight to the team. so we can check it out. And if you're a user, you can just sign up to the wait list. That's the best way to stay in touch with us. You get a newsletter, and then you're up to date on when the app becomes public.
Amazing. And you can't miss it. There's a big spot to get on the newsletter. I know I'm going to sign up right now. Devika, this has been so much fun. How about
Awesome.
you personally? Where can people connect with you online?
I'm most, I guess, active on LinkedIn. That's pretty much it. I do have an X and an Instagram account, but yeah, directly to the Soul website or LinkedIn, you can reach out to me. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you inviting me to be on the podcast and yeah, for your fun questions.